Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. Want to improve your organization's customer service? Looking for insider tips to knock your customer socks off? Then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Yannick Grant.
Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. On today's episode, our guest is Fred Moss. Fred, Dr. Fred Moss, is a holistic physician, restorative coach, podcaster, psychiatrist expert, witness at Welcome to Humanity with Dr. Fred Moss. Dr. Moss arrived on Earth on March 1, 1958, and from that very second has been earmarked to be a healer. The family he was born into was in chaos and in many ways was counting on his arrival to bring health and wellness back into balance. Little Freddy had his hands full, and over the next 6 decades he has made it his business to bring healing to the world around him, not only to his family and friends, but to the community and world at large. What a journey it has been. So without further delay, plug your earphones in, sit back, and let's jump right into this conversation with Dr. Fred Moss. Welcome, Dr. Moss.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. Just a pleasure. How are you today?
I am doing very well. Thank you for asking.
Of course.
All right. Now, I know we read a little bit about your journey, and I didn't read your entire bio, but if you could tell us in your own words a little bit about your journey. I know your bio, that the part that I did read, did indicate that you have been doing quite a bit of work since you landed on Earth. And so could you just share with our listeners a little bit about how you got to where you are today?
Sure. And, it has been a long, strange trip. It's been, a little over 64 years now, and young at heart for sure. And, there's lots of work to do. I arrived on that March 1, 1958 with the whole idea of being counted on to bring joy and pleasure and love and reconnection to that family. And, for the first couple of years, I probably did pretty good until my brothers got annoyed and irritated with me. I had 2 brothers, 10 and 14 years older than me. Mm-hmm. And they, they taught me how to be precocious. They taught me how to read and write and do math even before I arrived in kindergarten. But so when I arrived there, I was ahead of the class. I was, doing things that most of the kindergartners didn't want to do. I was like interested in flashcards and books and stuff like that. I was also bored, so I became a class clown. There's nobody in elementary school, no teacher I ever had who certainly ever forgot me as a student. Because what I was really interested in more than anything, I thought school was going to show me how to communicate. I loved the way that my parents and my brothers communicated with each other. I could just watch them from the playpen, and I knew that there was something special in the world of, sharing ideas with each other. And I really wanted to learn how to do that and become a master of communication. But lo and behold, elementary school was not a place to learn that. I thought, well, maybe the bigger kids, junior high. And when I got there, it was even worse. I thought, okay, high school. And then, no, that would be even worse. All you had to do was sit down and regurgitate what the teacher said, and that they would call you a good student and move you ahead. And I just thought that was so absurd. Eventually, I went to college, and, with the whole idea again, I went to the best college I could possibly think of because I loved their football helmets, and that was the University of Michigan. And I went there and, again, was kind of disillusioned with the idea that what I really had to do was just follow what the professor said, say whatever they wanted me to say, and then pass. Mm-hmm. That was an open discourse, and that's what I really wanted. So I dropped out of college. And I did what any self-respecting American dropout would do in the late 70s. I boarded a Greyhound bus and went all the way to Berkeley, California, so that I could learn, just figure out who I was. I had a great summer in Berkeley, but realized I didn't have a job and not much of a future. So my mom convinced me to come back and try school one more time. I came back. There was a new field that was just growing. You might have heard of it. It's called computer science. And the only computer that was there in Michigan happened to be at the University of Michigan. So, it was a 2-acre facility. I spent my day and night there pulling up batch cards and, hoping, like punch cards, and then hoping that the batch would run. And I did that for a little while until I realized that wasn't going to work. So I dropped out again. Now, this is when the story starts getting interesting, because in 1980, when I dropped out, my mom, again, convinced me that I should probably get a job. And I thought, yeah, making some money so I could buy a car so, I could go around the country and figure out what my life was about made some sense. So I started working at a state hospital for adolescent psychiatry, psychiatric hospital for adolescent boys. And that's where really my journey in some ways with this whole idea of mental health began. On January 5th, 1980, I began that job and I was a communicator. I knew that I could communicate with these kids. And then when we communicated and connected as human beings, well, healing took place in all directions, not just for them, but for me as well. And maybe even for the people around us, like treating these people like they were just people and not sick kids who are defective or afflicted, but just people just like me who don't really know what to do next and aren't really sure what their next step was, and really just acknowledging them for being human. I really, really strongly learned that communication and connection was at the heart of all healing, of all conditions. The thing I really disrespected, though, was the way psychiatry was dealing with these kids. I hated psychiatry. I hated that we would call the psychiatrist and, they would come by and interview the child for 3 seconds. We'd say, like, Johnny's up too late, or Timmy and Tony got in a fight. They'd interview the kid for 3 seconds and then, interview us for like 5 seconds and then take out their pen and write an order. And then we'd have to go haul the kid into the quiet room and hold him down against his will and then fill his hip up with, adult grade antipsychotic injectable medication. And if this put him out of his misery for the next 12 or 24 hours, we'd somehow call that a success. I found that to be so barbaric, and it's still going on in our world today, if you need to know. I mean, it's going on every single day in many different hospitals around the world. But I just decided that communication and connection really were what I wanted to be a stand for. And I went back to school solely to become a psychiatrist so that I could bring communication back to that field, because I saw the opportunity that psychiatry had to really make a difference in the world if they did that. Over the next 13 years, I completed my degree and completed my residency and completed my fellowship. And lo and behold, I graduated as a psychiatrist from a great medical school and a great residency. And there I was. The truth is that psychiatry had gone through a significant change at that time and began medicating people. This whole idea of diagnosing and medicating in biological psychiatry falls on the heels of a drug called Prozac. And Prozac had been introduced in 1987 while I was in training, and now I, too, was becoming a psychopharmacologist. Now, you can guess that there was some soul sacrifice there. There was some massive heartache because I didn't want to prescribe medicine. I didn't want to diagnose people. I went into the field so I wouldn't have to do that. But there I was actually living a life that was inconsistent to who I was. And over the next 15 years, I did my best to bring communication there. But, more and more, it was being contracted and constricted away from the psychiatric field. In 2006, I decided that I would finally start taking people off of medicine. I took some of my low-risk people off of medicine, and they just got way better, reliably better. As soon as I took the medicine away, their diagnosis often disappeared. And I thought I was onto something, like maybe the medicines actually perpetuate the conditions. Maybe, in fact, the medicines actually worsen or cause the conditions at times. Now, this made me really angry, and I didn't know exactly how to manage it. But over time, and it's been, 15, 16 years since 2006, I've really learned how to really get respect for not medicating, not diagnosing. And then, they call me the undoctor, unmedicating, undiagnosing, and then undoctrinating people. Really getting that if you're having a miserable time as a human, if you're uncomfortable, anxious, fearful, depressed, sad, confused, scattered, any of those things, it's entirely okay. And it's part of being a human to be highly uncomfortable at times, to be miserable at times is okay. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. After a while, you really get, we don't blame a log for burning in the fire. If you put a log in a fire, it's going to burn. If you put a human on this world, we're going to be uncomfortable. And we start really looking at that, and I'm back to getting that connection is at the heart of all healing. So I created a company called Welcome to Humanity in 2015, and that was, self-explanatory. All things human are okay. The possibility of seeing all people for who they are and who they're not is okay. And the possibility of accepting and even having some compassion and forgiveness for the misery that we all feel is all okay. Mm-hmm. And we started really communicating and connecting as a healer instead of as a doctor that I had been prior to that. After Welcome to Humanity, several other different things have sprouted. There was Global Madness, where I was going to go around the world like Anthony Bourdain and really see that psychiatry is different in all, the whole idea of mental health is different in Jamaica, and it's different everywhere. It's like what's sick in Jamaica isn't the same as what's sick in California. So it can't really be if you have a broken arm in Jamaica, you're going to have that same broken arm if you fly to California. But that's not true with mental health and mental illness. And so the idea that it's variable, meaning that it's transformable, meaning that we can alter this whole idea of what mental health and mental illness is through conversation, meaning that we can actually make a difference with people without having to put them on a couch 4 times a week or send them to Tibet or India or even get them a bunch of ganja. Those aren't the only ways to find peace. And we can find peace by recognizing that each of us are in this together. The true voice technology is my most recent finding after doing the Creative 8. The Creative 8 really took advantage of, the art, music, dancing, singing, drama, cooking, writing, gardening, all the creative acts in life can really lead to a reduction of this symptomology. And the Find Your True Voice technology, my most recent book, which I can offer to your listeners actually, is a technology that takes a deep dive into finding our authenticity in the face of any world experience and then speaking our exact truth, like what's really important to us. Because, you've probably noticed a lot of people are no longer speaking their truth, and they're just saying things that they don't even mean or not saying things at all because they're afraid they're going to be dismissed or discounted or censored or canceled or hurt. And I think in these difficult times in the world, more than anything, we really have to count on people to speak their true voice, because we're not going to be taking care of any of the very major problems in the world, like, COVID or like climate change or racism or sex trafficking or war or, all the many things that have really come forth in the last few years as super problems. Unless we have a conversation going, we're not going to be able to deal with those. And I don't know about you, but if, the future looks pretty grim if we're not going to be able to deal with those things. Like, it looks like pretty calamitous. And the only way we're going to get there is by, really finding a way to communicate together. And that's what I'm a stand for now, as I've been since the moment I arrived on Earth, March 1, 1958.
All right. Okay, thank you so much for sharing, Dr. Moss. No, mental health is a real thing. I don't think a lot of companies or even countries, for that matter, really give it the attention that it needs and the dedication that it requires. Could you share with us, as an organization, how maybe one or two things that you can do as leadership in an organization, or putting in place some form of program to support team members where mental health is concerned in order to strengthen the customer experience?
Yeah, I think, if you're really up to having a healthy workforce, a healthy payroll, people who are really able to stand up for what's important in a customer experience, I think the number one thing to really get is that all people really want more than anything is to be heard. To be heard and to be listened to actually be cared for, to be appreciated, to be acknowledged. So if you're going to do anything, I think there could, to create an atmosphere in your company or in your corporation or in your small groups or even in your experience with the customers, where the primary goal is to listen intently to what's being said. And not only what's being said with words, but what's being called for. How can you move the needle forward in a progressive way? What is the environment or the circumstances calling on you to present or you to be with, including the possibility of saying nothing?
Mm-hmm.
Can you listen for what's being called for to move that conversation forward and provide that creatively? We're all super creative. Every one of us, including those of us who think we're not. That's just an old injury when you think you're not. The truth is, we're all very creative, and we are all listening at our own pace and our own level. And we're then delivering what we think is right. And what I'm saying is that more than anything, it's not a matter of speaking. It's a matter of listening to those people who are struggling to say that which is really important to them, whatever way they're doing it. So I believe that more than anything, the secret ingredient here is definitely listening.
All right. So we need to listen more, because everybody wants to be seen, they want to be felt, they want to be heard. And it's a process for sure.
Mm-hmm.
No,
yeah, we're
go
at
ahead.
a stage where when people disagree with us, we think it's okay to disregard them and dismiss them and, unfriend them and never talk to them, even if they're our siblings or our best friends beforehand. So these days we're canceling people out of our worlds because they disagree with us on some particular certain issues. And I know that's happened to me, and I think it's happened to most people where, I've lost friends in the last couple of years, and it's really quite painful. What's really there then is, listening is an active occupation. It's not just what you do in between the time you talk and the time you're going to talk next. It's actually having those ears open and being super curious about what that person is saying or what they're trying to get across in a way that really acknowledges and respects, accepts, and maybe even forgives that person for being as confused as they are when they're confused. Because after all, if you haven't noticed, each and every one of us is thoroughly confused. Some of us pretend like we're not and get it done. But each and every human on this planet is totally confused. Of course. How could you not be? It's some crap out there. Let's be fair about it. Those of us who pretend that we're not confused are almost more confused. They're more confused. They actually think that it's possible not to be confused.
Mm-hmm. The ones who think they're not confused, they're deluding themselves.
Exactly. Come on. Let's be real about it. Yeah.
All right. Now, Dr. Moss, if there was one thing to do immediately to assist ourselves when we're feeling out of balance, what would you suggest that one thing would be?
Yeah, I think it's pause. Stop. Hold on a second. Reconfigure yourself. Allow yourself to make a mistake. Allow yourself to learn. Allow yourself to regroup and get curious again. Give yourself compassion, forgiveness, acceptance. I guess you only ask for one thing. And I see this as one thing, right? It's like pause and reset.
Okay.
You can do that hundreds of times per day if you want. Pause, reset.
Mm-hmm.
Pause, reset. It doesn't take very much work.
Yeah. And I guess the average person is just going and going and going and going, and it's like they don't actually take time. It's like I think generally people feel like if they stop and they're not doing something, that their productivity will decrease. But in order for you to be more productive, you really do need those pauses, don't you?
Yes, you do. I know how to run like the devil. I am a doctor, right? So they trained me in medical school to be up 24 hours in emergency rooms and, in psychiatry to deal with suicide and with homicide and with, alcoholism and drug addiction and overdoses and all those things. I know how to run hard. But the truth is, on those moments where I can get maybe even 5 minutes, let alone 20 minutes to just stop and sit or stop and appreciate or just, really no one ever told me I'd be alive forever. And no one definitely ever told me that this life was not with any misery. So the truth is there's massive misery, massive, overwhelming misery all over the world. There are great reasons for it. It's not in your head. It's very real. There's nothing wrong with you for being miserable in a miserable world when it's going on. For some reason, we have the capacity to recuperate or to reset ourselves because have you noticed that some days when you're just so totally spent, like you don't have another ounce of energy left, that later in that same day, you might have blissful moments. You might just realize the absolute beauty of life on the same day. That is a gift that came from us on creation. And it's extraordinary that this too shall pass still works, even in this world where calamities are just happenstance. I mean, they're just every day there's shit going on that is just thoroughly and totally unacceptable.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. All right, Dr. Moss, could you share with us what's the one online resource, tool, website, or app that you absolutely can't live without in your business?
Wow. I saw that question coming down the pike, and I was thinking, like, where am I right now with that particular question? And, I think the cheapest way would be to say something like email or messaging, but we'll go past that. I think that Slack is really interesting, although it has flaws. And I think that all of the apps, they have significant flaws. I think that Google Docs and Dropbox are super interesting. I have no idea what I would do without those two particular. Right. I mean, how would I handle life without Google and Dropbox? It's like there's a lot of my stuff locked up in there. I don't even know how to find it. So, but I think some of the more interesting, newer apps, as I learn about them, I'm 64, so I'm sort of on the back edge. I'm not quite as savvy as some of the 30 somethings, like my son, whose birthday is today. But I think that some of those new apps are so extraordinary as they come off the press. And, the things they do, some of these apps, they just do amazing things. But I think ultimately the one I can't live without is, I'd have to say, unfortunately, is the Google Suite.
Okay. All right. Could you also share with us, and I'm sure you've read many, many books across your lifespan, especially in the field that you are in, but maybe one or two that have had a great impact on you. It could be one that you read a very long time ago, or even one you've read recently that you'd like to share with our listeners.
Well, I'll tell you what, I am following, I like spiritual books, so I can't go very far without saying sort of like the Torah, the Torah, the Talmud, the Mishnah, the basic Old Testament Jewish texts. I love those. I love it. I'm not reading them this very moment, but the truth is, when I do, my whole life gets recentered. So it's hard to not pay attention to those books. The books recently that I've really been enjoying, I'm so excited about, are by like Alan Watts. I think Alan Watts is so brilliant and just recenters all of this nonsense so easily in 10 and 15 minute snippets. So you can read little chapters. It's generally readable. And he just takes on this whole idea of, the idea that time is just an illusion, or space is just an illusion, or that all we really have is now. And he does it in a way that I find to be so entertaining and refreshing. Now, Think and Grow Rich, I'm sure other people have answered that with that question, has answered it with that book. I think it's a fine book and everything. I don't know that it's the life-changing book of my life. For some people, it really is. But I think that, and once I get past the Torah, then I have to get to what I'm reading now. I got so many books open. You're right. I have so many books open in my living room. I have like 40 books that are open in my living room right now that I've, like almost done with or partially through. And I'm just keep reading. I just pulled off To Kill a Mockingbird. I'm like, oh yeah, someday I'm going to read To Kill a Mockingbird because I understand that that's going to really change my life. But I've got like 23 books to read before I get to that one. So, and then life goes on. Okay,
Fred. So we would like you to share with our listeners what's one thing that's going on in your life right now that you're really excited about. Either something you're working on to develop yourself or your people.
Well, it goes together. That's a great question. It's really, I am working on it both with myself and with my people. And the new course that I've developed is called the True Voice course. And it's about your voice mattering. Basically, it's a course that is an online course, but it's mixed in with a mastermind. You get my 2 books, you get access to me, and you get access to a community of like-minded individuals who are really out to bring their true voice forward. I've graduated over 50 people in my courses to move them from zero to podcasters. So that's one group of people you get. But you also get people who are really interested in bringing their voice forward. The technology I've developed is comprehensive, and I'm super excited about rolling out that course. You can find it at truevoicepodcasting.com. And the first 10 people who come into that course are actually going to get it at half price. And that's a significant savings. And we really just want those people to come in, take the course, let us know what works, and if there's parts of it that are vague or maybe we overlook, so that we can make this course spectacular for everyone. This course is running out, starting this week and next week. So by the time that this airs, it should have a number of people that are in it. I'm super excited about it because it really incorporates my books and my experience right there into a course where I can source people to find that true voice and bring it forward to a world that's waiting.
Okay.
When I say that there's a personal aspect to this, I'm doing the same thing with my wife. I have a wife here, a gorgeous, unbelievable, amazing human being who I call my wife. And we have 3 cats, and we live in a pretty cool house. And We're just kind of trying to figure out how to create a relationship every single day. And it's the same thing using the same technology, right? Because if you're not speaking your true voice, then no one is ever going to know you. And that's the way I am with Alexandra as well, and the way she is with me. And we bring forth art and communication and creativity, like the Creative 8 asked for, as well as the true voice, as well as her own special style, which is through dance and art, to really create a relationship that's never been done before. So those are the two things, and they're kind of related. And, these are special times to be able to have come through this life and still be, banging away on things that truly do matter, like human connection.
Okay. Now, for those of our listeners that would want to tap into this program, Fred, is it that it is geared towards a particular type of person, or is it open to anyone, regardless of where they are in their life?
Well, it really is open to anyone, but I think what we're really looking for, what we're finding, are the people who have felt muted, who feel muffled, who feel, fearful, who feel that their voices are not being heard, or that they're not speaking their true voice, and they're eager to do so. Maybe there's a new level of urgency given of all the world issues that we're now experiencing. And these often turn out to be mothers. This often turn out to be mothers on the other side of, an empty nest, perhaps, or a divorce, or maybe even just mothers who want their children to have the voices. They start realizing that up until now, they've been caring for so many people, but, what about me? Like, what about the things that really matter to me? And it's the what about me people who are really taking this course by storm, who are like, yeah, I forgot how to speak my truth. I want to find my truth. I want to refine my truth. And then I want to deliver that truth. And, podcasting is one spectacular way to do that. It's not the only way. We help people find their voice, and then, naturally they find we're going to deliver it and how they're going to deliver it, even if it's just in their family or if it's on a stage in front of thousands of people. Either way, it's the same general criteria. We help you take a deep dive to finding that authentic self of yours, rediscovering it, refining it, and then delivering it to the world that really is ready and willing to listen to you.
All right. Sounds awesome. Now, our listeners would have tapped into this podcast, and they're quite intrigued with your journey, with your program, with your books, just with who you are as an overall human being, and they'd like to connect with you online. Where can they find you online?
I hang out sometimes in the social media. I do. I have a Facebook account that's pretty active, and I have a LinkedIn account that's pretty active. And my team is teaching me how to use TikTok, so they say I'll be good on that. And I got Instagram and all that, and it's all interesting. But the truth is, I always answer this question the same way, which is email me. Dr. Fred at welcometohumanity.net. I'm very eager to speak with people straight up, rather than coming through all the nonsense of what, my profile, my banner, I get it, my capacity to deliver high production videos and all that. I can do all that, but I don't want people to get too excited about that, because we've got real work to do, and that's only going to happen through pure conversation, and that's only going to happen if you just dig right down to the person. And the closest way to get a hold of me at this point, other than a phone call, I suppose, would be by email, which is drfred at welcometohumanity.net.
All right. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Now, as we wrap our interview up, Dr. Moss, we always like to ask our guests, do you have a quote or a saying that during times of adversity or challenge, you'll tend to revert to this quote? It kind of helps to get you back on track if for any reason you get derailed or get off track.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have one of those?
Yeah, I think so. There's a couple that come to mind. I used to answer this question with the Rolling Stones, you can't always get what you want, but you get what you need. I think that's a sweet quote. I think there's something else, though. There's this too shall pass, that is a beautiful quote. And that we are spiritual beings, living a human experience is, there's something very beautiful about that too. Yeah, I think that, that we are spiritual beings living a human experience can be very helpful as well. Getting us centered into the here and now, and getting that, calamities and disasters and all those things that we hate no one ever said that wasn't going to be part of this life. So this idea of really listening in order to learn seems like it comes very easily from this notion that we are spiritual beings living a human experience.
All right. Okay. So we'll have those two, the Rolling Stones and the This Too Shall Pass. Really appreciate that. Now, thank you again, Dr. Moss, for taking time out of your very busy day to hop on this podcast with us and share all of this awesome content on what you are doing, how you are trying to help people to have more real conversations, to really get their message out there, and just to be their most authentic and true self. It really was a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Yannick. Thank you. And thanks for working through all the technological challenges. It really was a beautiful conversation, and I appreciate you. And really, to you and your listeners, whether or not this isn't a pitch for my product. I have a product, it's true, and I get it. But it's not about that. These are difficult, urgent, real times. And what I really want people to get is, if you don't speak, no one will ever hear you. And if you don't speak your true voice, no one will ever know you. I have a capacity to source people to actually find that true voice. And whether you use me or someone else, I just really, really, really am interested in people who are ready to put their foot down and get that, yeah, in what's left of this short life, even if it's 10, 20, 40, 60 years from now, you want to get heard. You want to be loved. You want to be appreciated. Okay, then let's start really getting with who you really are and making that happen. And whatever it takes to do that, I implore your listeners and yourself to really step up, because that's all that's left to do as far as I see.
Mm-hmm. All right. Awesome. Awesome message. Awesome note to leave us on, Dr. Moss. Now, I just want to remind our listeners to feel free to follow us on Facebook. Our private Facebook group is Navigating the Customer Experience Community, and follow us on Twitter at NavigatingCX. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant. Okay, Dr. Moss, so you have a gift for our listeners. Please go ahead and share.
Yeah, I have a gift. I wrote a book this year that I'm really proud of, and it takes a deeper dive into this whole notion of how this technology works. I know the title of the book will surprise your audience. It's called Find Your True Voice. And in a way, I'm going to send the actual book to your customers, to your listeners, if they just sign up for the book. And you can find that at findyourtruevoicebook.com. That's findyourtruevoicebook.com. And I'll send you a copy. And, after that, I just want to hear, what did you think of the book? Is there something there that can move you forward? Or where is it that this book or my talk is valuable? Because I'm super interested in delivering talks and having people really get that if we don't speak, the future looks pretty grim. And if we do speak, we can end all wars. And that's what that book is about, really finding a true voice. And it's simple to read, fun to write. And I invite your listeners to sign up for a free copy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Moss.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Navigating the Customer Experience. If you'd like to connect with us even more, please feel free to hop onto Facebook and join our private Facebook group, Navigating the Customer Experience Community. And of course, feel free to follow us on Twitter at NavigatingCX. We also have a new book available on Amazon, The ABCs of a Fantastic Customer Experience. It's available in ebook and paperback. So if you want to increase revenue in your organization, build a stronger service culture, and create employees or develop employees who are really mastering service delivery in your business, you need to grab a copy of this book. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant.
Thanks for listening. For more awesome resources to take your customer service game to another level, head over to navigatingthecustomerexperience.com. See you next time.